Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Bancroft Brothers animation podcast.
Yeah. Hey, Tom. Not just another special podcast. That's for sure,
We're going
right?
to call it a special edition. I like that.
It is a special edition because we're going to be talking about current events. We like to do that on the podcast. We usually talk about real positive things, and we're going to take a positive approach to a very difficult conversation tonight on surviving unemployment in the animation industry. Yeah, I said it. That's where things are at. But before we do, we would be remiss. Two things, actually, Tom. Before our sponsors, I got to say, the Annie Awards happened just this last weekend from where we sit. So we're midweek now, and the Annie Awards.
Congratulations to all the winners.
That's what I was about to say. Yes, yeah. Congratulations. But the big two winners, usually there's one big winner every year. This year it was kind of equally shared by Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, of course. That one more for the feature side, but for the series side, Blue-Eyed Samurai. Blue-Eyed
Tony,
Samurai?
I have not seen that. Have you seen Blue-Eyed Samurai?
I have. It's phenomenal looking. And it won for all the right reasons. Writing, it won production design, it won all kinds of things like character design and things like that. So big hit. Yeah, big hit for.
And I think our friend Brian Kessinger is he head of character design?
Yeah, he's I think he's the main head character designer. We could probably say that. I know he
Bravo,
did.
Brian. Nice job.
Brian Kessinger. Yeah, we did a podcast with him a while back. So
go look at that out. Yeah, go look it up. It's fun. And so let's and I want to land the plane on this so we can get into our topic, but I want to hear this. So this now leads us into the Academy Awards. Nobody ever says the Annies are telling of what the Academy Awards are going to do. I've never heard that
once. They started doing that a couple of years ago, but yeah, I think they've kind of moved away from. Now they talk about Golden Globes and who won for that.
Oh, Golden Globes for sure are the ones that usually, that industry-wise, Hollywood-wise, not animation-wise, Hollywood-wise, they always go to the Golden Globes and say, oh, that might be a precursor of what's going to happen at Academy Awards. Nobody goes to the Annies for that. Let's be honest. It's a a different group that's voting. So I don't see why you would go right to the Annies. The Annies are full of judges that actually know what they're doing. So the Academy Awards do not. And so who do you think that Spider-Verse is just going to be a home run when it comes to the Academy Awards?
I do. I don't care. I don't care who predicts it. I don't care what award show it is. I think hands down, everybody feels like Spider-Man in Across the Spider-Verse is the hands down favorite. If anybody is a close second or could upset the cart there, it would be Miyazaki's Boy and the Heron.
Now, and that's good that you say that because, well, I haven't seen The Boy and the Heron yet, and I think you did, right?
Yeah, I've seen everything. You've seen nothing. We've established that.
I saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Stop it. But what I would say this, the Boy and the Heron is a much more Academy Award kind of group nomination type of a thing, right? Like, or a winner. Yeah. They're going to go for the artsier film, which is definitely the auteur side of Miyazaki. They love that guy, and he's on the board. He's an Academy board member.
Is he?
Oh yeah, Miyazaki. He got it. He took my spot, Tony. Yeah,
like 15 years ago when you had the chance to get in.
Yeah. I had a little window, and they ended up accepting him. So I think they only accepted 2 or 3 people, and he was one of them. So I honestly feel like he took my spot.
So, well, I think it's a good person to take your spot if you have to have somebody.
He's all right. He's all right. We have a very serious topic tonight, and so we're going to bring it down a little bit. And that is surviving a layoff. And that is, we're living in a world right now. The gaming industry, everybody, has been just ripped to shreds. If you think animation is in rough shape, and it is, gaming has gotten it even worse. Tens of thousands of people laid off, I think now total over the last year or two. But animation is not doing a lot better. And live action film, of course. And then I almost said AI again is coming. I'm not going to bring that up. So
AI is its own thing, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
let's
We keep saying we're going to have a conversation about AI, and
I'm working on it. I emailed that person that we want to bring in on for that. So
special guest.
I would love us to introduce our new friend, Meridian Culpepper, to help us talk through this subject.
Hey, Meridian.
Hey, Meridian.
Hey, hello.
I took your name away from Tony. He was going to introduce you, and I did it because I thought, no way.
But you didn't add the gray in there. She likes the gray for credit, so it's Meridian Gray Culpepper.
I thought that
right?
meant in production credits, not necessarily in introduction credits. Yeah,
It is my real middle name, though, so I just make it up. So.
And we off stage, we've already established you need to be a writer just to put that on a book jacket because that's a good name.
Yeah,
it is. So Meridian, and for the audience out there, we go way back, not too far, but I've known Meridian for at least a year, I would say. And I came to know her first as a real talented storyboard artist. She was also part of a Bible study that I was a part of for a brief time. There was also recently, Cartoon Brew ran a story on a video that Meridian had produced. You've done some YouTube videos in the past, but this one is kind of blown up because you called it very aptly Surviving Unemployment.
In the animation industry, specifically.
Specifically in the animation industry. So you're an artist, you're a storyboard artist specifically, and been working towards breaking in. You have done a couple credits. I looked at your IMDb. I only found one thing. Was there more than what I found?
Just one.
Just the one.
But this is pretty cool. Started really in a great spot. Pixar intern. Nice job there. That's not an easy job to get.
Well, let's start there. Why don't you take us back? You're coming out of school. You graduated tell us what school, but then also what was the environment like then, and how competitive was it? How did you feel about the industry when you were coming out of school?
Dang, I mean, I didn't even go to art school, right? So I didn't even have a clue. No, I didn't have a clue about anything. I went to community college out in Indiana. I live here in Indiana for about 2 years. And then I finished out at Indiana University, but they didn't have any animation majors. So I basically asked the school, can I do my own thing? And they said, sure. So that's kind of what I did was I created my own animation major. I just took some drawing classes and took some production classes and called it animation because there's no other option. So I graduated in winter of 2019. I actually went out to LA to visit in February of 2020, thinking my life was about to begin. And 2 weeks later, COVID happened.
Oof.
So I graduated right into the pandemic, and I worked at a smoothie place and Shake Shack, and that was my life. And I really wanted to work in animation. That was always my dream, but I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. I literally just decided I wanted to be a storyboard artist after I graduated. So I was really out here trying to make it happen. And I didn't even know how to build a portfolio. I wasn't really sure how to even storyboard, period. And it wasn't until I got an opportunity through Women in Animation to be mentored by Mia Calderon, who was at Netflix at the time. She mentored me for about 3 months, and we created a sequence together. I put that in my portfolio. And I always tell this story, but I have to credit everything to my mom because one day there was a job at Pixar that opened up, just a regular story position, and I wasn't going to apply for it. And she walks into my room. She's like, "Did you see that Pixar is hiring?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Did you talk like that? Do the voice.
Hiring? Right at me. And I was like, "Yeah, what does that have to do with me?" And she was like, "Well, aren't you going to apply?" And I was like, "Haha, like, funny joke, Mom." But she made me. She sat down next to me and watched me fill out the application and was like, "You are going to apply." I applied. I didn't obviously get the job, but I did get an email. And I got an email from Derek Thompson. We're still in touch to this day, basically saying, "Hey, you didn't make it to the next round, but would you apply for the internship instead?" And
Wow.
that was literally, I went from nobody, didn't know anything, smoothie making, whatever, to 4 months later, I was an intern at Pixar and I was totally out of my depth. I did not know anything about storyboarding. I felt super
Well,
behind,
no,
but
so wait, this is not a production internship, like where you're doing
no, Story
copies or
doesn't get to work on anything fun. Story
you're
gets to just get beat for 3 months.
wait, but when you say beat, my assumption is you're doing little tests and stuff the whole time, but you're
We're doing
storyboarding.
assignments every week. So we have like 4 days to board like 200 panels of something. So that was me for 12 weeks.
That is amazing. I've never, so you're
Wow.
making a lot of people mad right now. I want you to know that because they've tried to get in and they went to CalArts or whatever. And here you come out of nowhere and it sounds like hadn't done much storyboarding, honestly.
I'm kind of amazed too. I mean, and I've complimented you on your work before, Meridian, but I'm saying this for the audience. Go check out her Instagram at Meridian Gray Culpepper, and Gray has an A.
I'm going right now.
You're going to see that Meridian can draw. She can draw well. So it doesn't really surprise me that you got into Pixar like that. I guess what surprised me is that you're self-taught, that you didn't have college and all that to assist you. What was your influences back then? Were you reading like Art of Books and copying?
I was watching the DVD extras to The Incredibles, Tony. That was my influence. I was watching all the deleted scenes. I was like, what, 12, 13. I watching the deleted scenes from The Incredibles with Brad's commentary. I'm sitting back here going, yeah, that was a right move, Brad. You should have removed that because that's awful. Like, what did I know? But like that's where I got my education. That and then the end of the Alice in Wonderland VHS tape where they're pointing at the storyboards and pitching it. That was my education. That was it.
God.
I just in real time looked you up. I love it. I totally agree with Tony. You're really talented. I cannot believe that you're self-taught basically, plus 3 months of some training. But wow, you really have a good drawing style for boarding too, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, and I'm already following you. I don't follow a lot of people. So I must have seen some drawing that I was like, ooh, I like that. Yeah.
Well, so Meridian, your story is that you got picked up into an internship at Pixar. I think a lot of people probably think, oh, you're in an internship, that's going to lead to a job, and everybody that gets into an internship gets a job at Pixar. That's pretty far from the truth, right?
Yeah, pretty far from it. I mean, again, the internship that I was experiencing was abnormal. I was still in Indiana because of COVID. We didn't get to go on site. We were the only group of interns that year who had not actually been on site for the internship in history. So I was working 12 to 9 p.m. every single day, nonstop. Like, and you can't hug each other after you had a bad pitch. There's no hugging. There's no pats on the back when you did a good job. There's just people staring at a Zoom screen going, yeah, that could have been better. And then you just shut it off. And then you go in the corner of the room and you just cry. That was all I got with it. I visited there about a few months ago for the first time. I actually went, I walked through the gates. And I was being shown around and I was excited, but then inside I was like, yeah, this would have been nice. Yeah, would have been nice.
Yeah, kind of a little bitter.
This pizza oven, this grand pizza oven every single day outside the window. Like, I feel like I missed out.
Cereal. Yeah.
Well, you're walking around going, wait a second, they make smoothies for you? I used to make the smoothies.
So I was a little perturbed about that, but at the same time, it was all about the work. That's what it became about, was all about the work. So.
You probably learned a ton because of COVID in a way, because you were just so stuck and focused.
But let's face it, working in-house, working in a studio, a huge part of that is making connections.
Yeah.
You probably didn't have that great experience of making relationships and connections like you wanted to, right?
No, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anything. It's a miracle I'm here, guys.
I love your attitude. So wait, I want to just back into that a little bit more, meaning like, okay, so out of that internship, did they hire anybody?
Yeah, well.
And how many people were in the internship?
So there were about, I'd say 7 of us that were interns, but 2 of them actually were residents because they were going to be interns that previous quarter, but because of COVID, they had canceled it entirely. So they actually brought back 2 interns, and part of their residency was being in the internship. So they stayed. And then they did end up hiring 1 person to stay and become a resident after that. Yeah.
Okay. I don't
When
know
you
what
say
a resident
does that
resident
mean-
is. That a full-time employee?
A resident is like a full-time employee, but you're not paid as much. And instead you get to kind of float from all the productions to kind of like see how it is to work with different people and stuff like that. And then eventually they kind of peg you kind of like what your thing is and who you work well with. And then you stay on as a full-time employee, from what I understand.
Interesting.
Okay.
Never heard of that.
So, okay. So you didn't get picked up after the internship. What happened next?
Oh, I went back to Shake Shack.
Did you? Immediately. You were at
Wow.
I
Shake
did.
Shack.
I didn't have another choice. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's the theme of this whole podcast, guys, is I didn't have a choice, and I have to hustle and make a living because, you know, a lot of this industry is luck.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's timing and luck. And yeah, for 7 months, I went and worked. I had to move back in with my parents because I couldn't afford to live on my own anymore off my Pixar money. And for 7 months, I continued to work. And that was, 7 months until I got a job at Skydance. And I was out there a week later. I was like, see ya.
Okay. So wait, I haven't heard this story. So does that mean you're working at Skydance now? Or
I
is
worked
that-
at Skydance for a little over a year.
Okay.
Mhm.
And that's what you got laid off from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It's not just
How
the
long is that?
internship.
How long of a layoff has it been for you?
About 11 months now.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So this is where we're gonna tap into the video that you have on YouTube, and do check that out, guys. What I love about it is that Meridian, you kind of systematically talk through. Let me give you my advice. Let me give you kind of the things that I learned to survive. And so let's break those things down. So you're at 11 months. So I'm thinking that one of the first things, although please correct me if I'm wrong, is like you are living at first off of some kind of stash, some kind of nest egg.
Yeah. Yeah. I came to LA with nothing. I didn't have anything in my savings. So when I first moved to LA, I lived with 3 other roommates. So rent was pretty low. And that's how I kind of managed to save up for those first about 6 months. I lived with 3 other people. And so rent was low. And I managed to really heavily save those first 6 months. But then even after the 6 months, I was saving heavily every month because I just had a feeling. There was just something in me I looked at the streaming kind of climate and I looked at theaters. I saw how things were doing and I just had a feeling. I was like, I just think that it's going to be bad.
Wow.
I don't know what it was, but
That's crazy. I bet Bob Iger would have liked to have talked to you about that.
Yeah.
He didn't see it coming.
He didn't see it coming, did he?
Well, we've
None
talked
of
about
it.
this on other podcasts recently even, but for those that maybe are new or just to set a tone, I guess, there has been, Tom was already hitting upon this, huge layoffs have happened over the last, I'm going to say really the last 3 to 5 months in the animation and gaming industry, largely due to an inflated work time that we went through once COVID hit. COVID was actually, as horrible as it was health-wise for a lot of people, the upside was that animation like doubled or tripled during that time. There was
Really thrived.
Yes, and it was a bubble that happened there because all these streaming services started up. There was pre-COVID one service like Netflix, and then during and mid-COVID, there was like 5 different services. They all needed projects, they all needed content, and animation was one of the only things that could be produced during the COVID season because everybody was working lonely at home, just like Meridian was. And I worked on feature films at home during that time. Everybody was
Basically,
getting work.
animation didn't have to stop, so it just went into double time. Yeah.
But like
so-
everything, like any bubble that rises, soon it will pop and fall. And just like we always describe this industry as a kind of a roller coaster with ups and downs. We are definitely in a down now. The bubble has popped.
And they got heady too, and they just were spending stupid money.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
They were overspending, and this is doubly true in the video game side of things.
Yeah.
We have a friend that worked on over at Riot
Arcane.
on Arcane, which was a great series, critically acclaimed. But the kind of money they were spending on it, and we don't know final numbers, but it's a lot of money per episode.
It was probably a record breaker for most money for a series. That's what we're guessing.
It looked like so.
It does. I mean, like
it does.
Some of it's on the screen. We'll say that.
Most of it made the screen.
I don't know. But it was stupid money. Let's be honest. Like, I don't know why the Disneys of the world were looking at the last few years and going, yeah, let's put whatever 100 million into something. We'll get that money back. We'll make $1 billion. Well, because they had to make $1 billion to make their money back on some of these films the last few years. And it's just, that's dumb. That doesn't make sense. So anyway, course correction has happened, and that's what affected you and all the other people that have been laid off, is this terrible course correction that had to happen. So the animation is not dead. The animation industry is not dead. It's just been downsized considerably, unfortunately. Now that we've told that story, Tony.
so it's a very competitive time for job hunting. There's less shows, there's less projects out there that are looking for new employees. And let's face it, what happens oftentimes is that those jobs will go to the most experienced, the people that are already out there, and probably the people that are already in-house at a lot of those studios currently are going to stay on and just go to the next thing before they're going to look outside for new talent and new voices. It's just how it is. It's just going to be how it is always. So we're looking for more opportunities to rise up. But in the meantime, we're trying to follow that dream. And I know, Meridian, this is really where I'm talking about you and your story. There's that dream that you had of coming into animation and using your skill sets and storytelling. And Seth, certainly after a successful time as an intern at Pixar, you must have been going, this should be easier, right?
I mean, it was one of those things where because I was so new, and I still consider myself very new to the industry. I mean, 3 years, right? And three of those years have been crazy, being an intern, and then my next gig being on a very difficult production. So I feel like constantly my experiences, I'm kind of like looking at people around me, my coworkers, and I'm like, is this normal? And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, okay, but you say that, but how would I know otherwise? So like this whole experience has been crazy. So during, coming out of the Pixar internship, it was still COVID. So I didn't have any hope because I was like, well, they didn't pick me up, and I wasn't ready to make a move to LA without a job. I wasn't comfortable doing that.
But that's smart.
But like I wasn't comfortable doing that. I didn't have the money to do that, and I didn't want to go out there and run out of money before I just didn't think it was wise. So I waited. and I think honestly waiting was the best decision for me personally, was waiting. So
did you that time, I'm just curious, to up your portfolio and things like that, or were you just too busy working?
It's funny because a lot of the work I did for Pixar, I considered putting in my portfolio, but to be honest, a lot of the work wasn't that great. So I actually got the Skydance job with the exact same portfolio I got the Pixar job.
Internship.
I didn't
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
But it probably helped to have that. It probably helped to have that on your resume that you were a Pixar intern.
Yeah,
right?
it beefed up the resume for sure. But like, I didn't feel comfortable adding anything in because I it's sad that I didn't get to stay, but I look back and like, it's a good thing I didn't stay because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got the opportunity and I grew as an artist, but there's no way I would have been successful if I had stayed. I needed more time to hone in on my skills and to sharpen those. And I did while I was working here and there, but the portfolio stayed the same because it wasn't broken. I'm not going to fix it. Like, I know I can draw better, but story is what matters. Yeah, the drawings can be better, but the shot choices, the sensibilities, the instinct, that's what they look at. And that's what got me the job, not the pretty drawings. So
I love that. Meridian, I want you to kind of go back to this, which is the video that you created. So how long after you got, laid off did you make that? And what was your intention? What motivated you to do that?
Yeah. So that video is probably like 2 weeks old now, maybe almost 2 weeks. So I just filmed it. What motivated me to make it was that I started YouTube like late September last year because I figured I'm not working right now. I think it would be a really good idea for me to be able to put out educational content about story, because then it would force me to relearn. When you teach others, you learn too.
Yeah.
And so that was the goal, was like, let me just teach what I know. And what I know is very minimal, but I know it can help somebody. And I just think that education in general for animation is incredibly gatekept by schools. And so I just wanted to give people an opportunity to learn and to watch videos on things that I had questions about that I didn't have. Like, I went in blind, and I wanted to be the resource that I wish I had when I had those questions. So that was the whole goal. And so originally I was like, we're only going to stick to educational content. I'm not about to go on YouTube and cry. That is the last thing I want to do. I was not going to be that person.
That's how you get followers, don't you know?
And lo and behold, the video where I get emotional gets the most attention. You can imagine how at first angry I was, actually, because I was like, I have been working so hard trying to put out quality content, and the minute I put out something semi-personal, it blows up. But I learned a valuable lesson, which is that who you are and your art you create, they're actually both valuable.
Yes.
And what I had been putting emphasis on for the past 11 months was the quality of work I produce, but not who I was as a person.
Yeah.
And so I think that after I released the video, something happened where I realized that actually my worth isn't defined by the work I produce. It's by something else. And that just only proved it. Honestly, I was at my most vulnerable, at my most weak, at my most pitiful, and then it just blows up. But I think that just speaks to the fact that I think that we're not our work. We're something more. We're storytellers, we're artists. And we shouldn't really be defined by whether or not we're working in the industry or not. We need, whether or not there are jobs or they're not jobs, we are who we are, and we can always find purpose in whatever work we do or choose to do.
I love that, because so many of us connect purpose. I'm glad you said that word, even, because many of us define ourselves in the animation industry as where we work, the project we're on, or who we're next to, or something like that, to give us credibility. But yeah, you're right. What we really need is to understand our purpose as storytellers and what we want to contribute to the larger, not only industry of animation, but to the world through our art. And I think that's what you're really talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I want you to go through, for those that haven't seen the video, what were some of the things that you said? And obviously you don't say everything. We want people to go watch that video, by the way. But I do want to, this is what the show is all about, is like, what are some of your pointers? I'd love to then at the end of that, maybe eventually get to the point of what were some of the comments that people sent in. But let's talk about what are your kind of pointers? I don't know if that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah. So it was pretty straightforward, actually. There was nothing that I feel like was quite outrageous that was said. I think sometimes when we struggle, we just need an outside perspective to step back and to calm us down and to like remind us, like one of the biggest points I made was like, hey guys, you signed up for this. You're an artist. Like, you don't get the comfortability of like when you get laid off, you can go to LinkedIn and find another job pretty easy, which like, like a lot of other people can who aren't in the entertainment industry. Right.
Right.
So it's like my first point was kind of like, hey, you're going to have to prepare for this for the rest of your life. Welcome. And I was talking to myself really, because I was like, I really thought what I wanted was to be like a Disney lifer, like 20 years at the same studio, comfortable. Like I sit at the same seat every day. Like that's what I wanted, was comfortability, but I didn't get that.
And so that doesn't exist. Like, I mean, to your point,
it doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist anymore. I mean, that's what Tom and I wanted too.
Not anymore, which I didn't realize going into the industry. Right. And so first point I made was like, you're going to have to hustle, right? That's the biggest point, is when there are no animation jobs, I think sometimes people can get stuck in a mindset of, well, I just need to work on my portfolio so I can get a job. Right now, that doesn't matter. At this very moment, you can have a smashing portfolio, but if you don't know the showrunner and you didn't, barbecue with him on Thursday night, you're not going to get that job. The guy who barbecued with him is going to get that job. So sorry. It is so rough right now that I don't even kid myself anymore. My portfolio is fine. I'm not touching my portfolio. There's nothing I need to do. I don't need to psych myself out. What I need to do is survive until I get my next job. And I'll do anything it takes to do that. And so I go through the video and I kind of just bring up, if you're in the animation industry, you're an artist. Like, come on, like you can use these skills that at first don't seem transferable, but really they are. Being a story artist, you are a storyteller. And if you don't have transferable skills, you should probably get some. Because you can't just be like, I'm a cartoonist and like get by in life with just that one skill. That's not gonna cut it.
Tony, I tried that for years. You're right.
Yeah. So it's, for example, what I'm currently doing right now is I'm doing a contract job back in the Midwest where I'm filming training modules for a pharmaceutical sales company. Right. And so in a way, it's like, I like video editing. Obviously, I do that with YouTube. I do motion graphics. I combine those skills, but also it's storytelling. There's a specific way that the modules have to be organized to, tell the sales reps what to do, understanding the product. And at first, like when I first got this gig, I was like, wow, really living the dream here, but like, but like
so far, it feels so far from the dream.
Stepping back, I was like, actually, there are a lot of things I can learn at this job that I actually wouldn't be able to learn maybe in an animation gig. And I was 100% right. I'm sitting in on these like sales training things. And I'm over here behind the camera going, wow, that's actually really, like, I'm like writing things down, about like selling a product, like selling yourself and ways like it's like, I think people don't understand that, like, if you just stay in the animation bubble forever, you might not get those extra skills that can actually set you apart when there are jobs available,
such a good point.
And so that was the biggest point I made, which was get transferable skills if you feel like you don't have any, and then you can find work, if you look hard enough, right? And so there was that one. Obviously, I just had run out of savings. At the time I actually made that video, I had like $900 in my bank account. And I was like, I had saved up all until that moment, right? That was the moment. That's why I made the video, because I was like, this is the end, guys. I almost felt like I should have filmed it on the edge of a cliff. Like, guys, this is my last video.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I felt like. But I think that taking saving seriously, people really need to take it seriously, like really save. I know it's so tempting because when you get really good animation gigs, they do pay well and you're going to want to be tempted, but like really, really hold back because you're going to have the rainy days. And that's what led me to being 11 months and being okay. Right. And so there's that point. But then, like, more specifically, like getting towards kind of like the end of the video and kind of what we were hinting at earlier about worth and about kind of like the bigger picture of being like, okay, if I don't work in animation, can I still call myself a storyboard artist? Like, can I still call myself an animator? Or if I feel like if I work in this pharma sales job, am I a failure? Am I giving up? You know, I had a phone call recently with a friend, a very well-meaning friend, who basically gave me the advice of like, I think it's time to give up. And I was like,
Wow. On
I was like,
animation. They were talking about animation.
yeah, like give
Yeah.
up. And I really wanted to ask. I was like, have you ever had a dream? Like, have you ever, you know?
Tony would call me and tell me those
You
things
know?
all the
But
time when we were younger.
yeah, but
Yeah.
essentially that was kind of the gist of the video, was understanding that transferable skills are important, and there is a place for creativity for you that is outside the industry, and there is no shame in making that pivot and making that change to support yourself in the meantime, because ultimately you have to believe that your job doesn't define who you are. Then you will be happy taking any job. Like I was happy taking Shake Shack. I was flipping burgers, but I knew it wasn't who I was. You know, I was working at a smoothie place, making smoothies, but I knew that wasn't who I was. But that's what you're going to have to struggle with. If you feel like you can't look outside right now, look within. That's all I have to say. Like, you know.
Nice.
Oh,
Well,
you know
Meridian,
what?
I gotta say,
There's
I'm
so much
very
wisdom
impressed
in
with
that.
this pivoting kind of philosophy. And there's a lot of ways that we can pivot too. And as you were speaking, I was thinking of, I've had to pivot in my career sometimes, but I think back to like when in our distant future, Tom and I went through the experience where everything went from
past?
2D at Disney,
Distant
past
past.
history. Yeah.
Yeah.
Recent
okay.
past. I think I
I
said
got
that.
that. No,
Anyway, we went through this time when 2D animation turned into CG animation with Toy Story and Pixar, the uprising of CG animation, which I'll tell you, that was a scary time in the animation industry. And there was huge layoffs, and there was huge amounts of people that were out of work. There was people that, like your friend and the advice that he gave you, gave up on their dream, gave up on animation. For some of them, I think they were okay. But for some of them, others, you know, they got jobs at Trader Joe's and they just would package groceries. I have nothing against that. Let me just say up front, if you got to pivot to something where you're slinging hot dogs or tiling roofs or whatever it is, I don't care what it is, but you got a family to provide for or your rent to pay, do it. I'm all for that.
It's honorable.
But I don't, like you, Meridian, I don't condone like making that a permanent choice. Like I can't go back, because to me, there's always opportunities that rise and fall within the animation industry. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of the right situation and all that kind of stuff. But keep those connections alive while you're pivoting into something else.
Huge.
There's another way to pivot too, though, I want to bring up, which is during that same time, people pivoted from 2D animation into storyboards or got into CG animation, where they swore that they would never do that because they love 2D so much, right? So they might have felt like they were betraying their dreams as 2D animators, but they were still animating. And at Disney and other studios, big studios working on great projects.
And many of them kind of fell in love with it all over again in a way, you know.
And it worked out. And they stayed within animation and kept their union benefits and all that kind of stuff.
They didn't have to do in-betweens anymore.
Yeah.
Let's get practical. So, Meridian, but there's a confidence that you have, and I know a lot of our listeners are going, that's great for her, but I'm not Meridian. I don't feel like I'm somebody that can roll with change. Let's be honest. There's a lot of people, and you sound like somebody that isn't afraid of change, at least not cripplingly wise. Some people are crippled by change. And so I'm sure you got that in the comments a little bit of like, ooh, easy for you. You're confident. You can talk, you know, like, and you're outgoing. Obviously you're good with words, and you can
good with words.
Well, Tony, let's face it. I'm talking about the animation industry. There's a lot of people that cannot communicate to other people.
You're right.
You're talking about our students now.
You know, but we've all seen it, and that's not you, Meridian. You come off like you're a producer. You have that kind of confidence. And so I love seeing it personally, because you're so young and you have sort of already what a lot of people would love to have. And I mean, just that side of your life. But let's talk about the comments. Like, what were they throwing at you? I'm sure there were a lot of people like, thank you so much for saying this. I'm feeling the same thing. I'm struggling, and this helped me. But I'd like to hear, were there negative sides of like, that's good for you, but this, and this?
Yeah. I mean, I think that a majority of the comments were positive, because I think that the majority of people who are watching that video are unemployed, and they're not about to be like, well, like there's
Right.
we're all desperate. And I think that there's something to it of just sitting in the pit together,
Yeah,
but
sure.
there are people who messaged me, and there were some comments that, particularly the way that I'm choosing to go about networking, I think was that was the touchy subject, because networking is a very touchy thing when it comes to any industry, right? Because I believe the advice in the video that I gave was that currently, and this is my experience, talking to recruiters aren't getting me anywhere, because recruiters are in the same boat that we are. Is my job going to exist tomorrow? Because recruiters are being laid off, because
they come and go
they don't want to
There's no
hire
jobs.
anybody,
There's
right?
no jobs to give out, right?
Yeah. And so literally all of my contacts in the past 11 months, all the recruiters that said we would love to hire you, they don't work there anymore. So I wasted a lot of my energy in these past 11 months really trying to butter up recruiters, when I should have just been going to the source, which is the people on the projects. And so that was my biggest kind of personal takeaway, which was, actually, I need to focus on those connections. I need to build those relationships.
Oh, and I think you're saying Instagram. Are you talking about DMing people?
So I was not necessarily DMing people, but I think that what I said in the video was, you should not be going to project leads if you have not established a relationship with the recruiter of that studio first. I don't think it's polite, because if a project lead gets a DM from you and goes to the recruiter and is like, this artist just DM me about my project, do you know them? And the recruiter says, no, I don't. Immediately you're like, you're sus. You know what I'm saying? Because the recruiter is the gatekeeper to the studio. They're the ones at the front desk that when you approach the front desk, and if they say you're okay, you get to go see the doctor, right? And so once you have a relationship with recruiters, then that for me is a green light to go ahead and reach out to people who work there in project leads, So,
and let's be honest, they would never tell you to do that, right?
No,
they're supposed to be they're supposed to be gatekeepers. They don't want you to go directly to the
No, they don't. They don't. But here's the thing: desperate times. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, I think that's why people disagreed, was because, well, that's not the way it's done. And I'm like, yeah, under normal circumstances, that's not the way it's done. But these aren't normal circumstances. We have to hustle. That was the whole point of the video, which was, if you're not first, you're last. Like, that's what I've been doing. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go straight to the source because I'm desperate. I'm not afraid to say that. I'm desperate right now. So yeah, I am going to actually, cross a line, if you will, because I want it that bad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want it that bad. And it was interesting because I got a lot of comments from other creative executives from other studios that actually countered those kinds of comments, saying, I actually like it when people do that. I actually admire that when they come to me.
Admired, but there's two different messages, like
different
admiring
messages,
it,
right?
but not liking it.
I found that too, though, Meridian. And I tell my students all the time, like I had a student that told me, my all-time favorite artist is Claire Keane. I'm just going to throw out her name because everybody loves Claire Keane. Right. And I said, well, does she know that? Have you told her that? And she's like, everybody says that to her. I don't want to. I said, but is there a way that you can open up a relationship with Claire Keane and not be obnoxious? Sure, there is.
There is a way. Always.
There is always a way if you're careful.
I always think, Tony, that it's funny that people go, oh, she hears it all the time. She doesn't want to hear it from me.
It's not true, though. They don't.
Everybody likes to hear a compliment.
Everybody loves to
overdo it.
Yeah, it's like the pretty girl at high school that never gets asked to the prom because everybody assumes that she got all these prom requests, right? Mm-hmm. And the truth is that I've talked to so many artists. We go to Lightbox Expo or CTN Animation Expo, great opportunity to talk to other artists. And I ask them, like, how, are you inundated through social media? Do you answer posts or answer DMs? All of them were like, yeah. I mean, if it's somebody that really sounds credible and they're like, I admire your work.
Yeah.
I'm going through some struggles.
And they don't ask for something first.
You don't ask. You don't ask the first time. I think that's a great thing to mention here right now.
Oh my gosh.
Is that the first one is really just opening a relationship.
It's saying
I admire
hi.
your work. I think you're great. I just wanted to tell you that means a lot to me. I get DMs like that and I'm like, oh, what? There's not an and but, or there's not a request after that for a drawing.
Oh, it's so rare. It's refreshing.
Yeah.
I agree.
It is refreshing. And then if I get another DM from them, and hey, I DM'd you before. And I love it how, on Instagram,
scroll up.
You scroll up a little bit like, oh, I had some interaction with this person 6 months ago or whatever.
That. Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, that was that guy that just like complimented me and was so nice. And now I'm going to be like a lot more engaged in answering them. But I spend a lot of time, I will say, I'll just be honest. I mean, I do spend a lot of time answering people's DMs and things like that. Even if they're like silly questions or something like, tell me what it was to work at Disney in the 90s. And it's like, well, that's an open question. That could be a book. I don't have time to answer that kind of thing.
Just to be clear on the podcast right now, I don't answer those questions. Go to Tony for those questions.
But I mean, if it's a very short, simple answer, they're just a fan saying, what was it like working with Ernie Isabella? Or did you like, what was your favorite character that you like to animate? That's a simpler question.
You're like, go listen to my podcast. You'll find the answer somewhere.
Ask my brother. He knows. No, but I have found that, artists, they're not on some kind of pedestal like we think they are.
No, they're not.
Our favorite artists, the people that have a big following and all that kind of stuff, they remember what it was to be just like you. Just like you as a student or as somebody trying to break into the industry. We've all been there. We've all had those same situations. Don't treat them like they're some kind of mega star or something like that. None of us are Tom Cruise or whoever's popular now.
Go even older. Robert, what are you going to say? Who's next?
Seth Rogen.
Clark Gable.
Clark Gable.
Well, Meridian, that was a nice tangent about you, Tony. Thank you. But back to Meridian. So like, what's kind of, where are you at now? Where's your headspace now that I didn't realize that it was only 2 weeks ago you put that post up or that YouTube. And, like, do you go, okay, what's next? Do I do a follow-up video? Do I do, or have you just given yourself that pep talk and that's all you needed? And now you're moving on to doing what you said, basically.
Yeah. I thought about doing a follow-up. I just laughed because I just could see the video, just like sitting there like, hey guys, so in my last video, it kind of blew up, and like I just don't want to become that person.
You would have to
far away because the rabbit hole, because that would be me falling down the hole. Like right now, I'm looking at the hole, and it's tempting, like to just like like whatever. But I just want to keep it focused on the work, on the mission, not on me. And so I think that's the one and done. I made kind of like a post on Instagram as like a thank you post, and that's about it because I don't want the focus to be about me. I don't want to get notoriety from anything. As ironic as getting notoriety for being laid off, like I don't even want that. Like I just want, at the end of the day, I want my work to speak. I don't want me to speak, and and that's something
it might be. Here's the problem, though. It might be a little too late for that because now that I know you, and if I had to watch that whole video, but I'm going to take this as that introduction to you. I want to see that next video. Like when you get a job, I want to hear the update. Like, and that's honestly, that's not bad on the viewer's part to go, I care about her now. I want to hear her update.
Like, I'm still shaking off the I think it's hard being an extroverted artist because art requires solitude and inwardness to create. But I thrive personality-wise. That's where I get my energy. And sometimes, and I got this at different work scenarios where my personality would outshine my work. That I would be a lovely person to be around. I'd be funny, like kind of like a personality hire, so to speak. And I became very conscious that, especially like as a woman who is young in the industry, I have a voice and I am very loud, and not everybody likes that. And so I've learned to kind of tone it down, because I really want my work to be quality enough. I don't want to feel like I have to overcompensate, but I'm kind of realizing now that I can be a cool person and a good artist. I don't have to pick one. But I think that maybe I was trained and told to kind of keep it under wraps when, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. So
I'm on that side of things. I don't want to see you change. So I really like.
Well,
the
and you're
vibe.
speaking to two guys that have kind of done that in our career too, is like put ourselves out there, done things to embarrass ourselves and not cared, things like that, that has put a little spotlight on us at times. But there's, I don't know.
Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
But I rarely see that the spotlight has been harmful for us. And I think as long as it does come back to the work and the art, like you're saying, Meridian, I think that's the most important thing. There's a lot of value in being a personality and being open and sharing. Let's face it. And I think that's what people are reacting to.
Well, more value than ever. This is the time to be that person. Obviously, we live in the world of reality TV. And I know that's not what you want to be, but boy, I'd hate to see you kind of stifle yourself just to fit into, be a cog in an industry that wants you to be quiet. I hope that's not the vibe you're getting. Hey, we do have to land this plane. Unfortunately, I have a pretty heavy out here, but is there, I don't know, I'm going to say that corny one. Is there something that you would tell somebody right now that was, do you have like a advice? Because we didn't really talk about like, what do you do now to try and look for a job? Do you have like one thing that you tell people?
One thing. We touched on it earlier, but the one thing I would say is flame those connections that you already have and create new ones. That's the biggest thing that I'm doing right now. If I said hi to you one time, I'm running with that. Like that's me right now is banking on those connections, because right now connections will get you a job. Nothing else will. You can't just apply and get a job. Connections will. So that's the one thing I think I'll leave people with.
Well, I'm going to add this too. Likability gets you a job, and you're very likable. And that, just saying what you just said, running at them, kind of like getting to know them more and kind of, asking questions. If you're likable, that's not going to bug people. So,
And so I can see now saying yes to being on the Bancroft Brothers podcast was definitely part of your master plan of making connections. So I appreciate it, Meridian, and I appreciate you. And I want to just say to the audience, everybody go check out Meridian's work. She's got a great portfolio up on her website, Meridian Gray Culpepper.com. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Culpepper, Culpepper.
Well, it's the gray that I want to know. Is it E-A-Y or
A-Y?
A-Y, great. Okay.
Based on my grandmother, who happened to be a great artist.
Oh,
and that's her Instagram too, guys. Meridian Gray Culpepper. That's her handle on Instagram. Look her up, check her out, see what she's up to. But watch your video too. If you have some of the same concerns about breaking into the animation industry right now, or just getting a follow-up job because you were laid off recently, find some solace in the words that Meridian shares, because there's some really good open truths there that need to be investigated. So thank you guys for being on the Thank you, Meridian, for being on the podcast. And Tom, as we always say, animate from the heart.
Be sure to subscribe to the Pencil-ish Studios YouTube channel.